and post that by tomorrow morning. Okay. All right. And I don't know exactly how I could do the recording when we're in person, but I might just try to do some kind of screen recording or audio recording, just so you could have a record of some of the things we do. I'll come up with something. I think I mentioned that. All right. The other thing is, there were 2 paragraph assignments last week. You may have seen that I just posted the grades. Anybody who completed the assignment earned 10 points for each one. And I did write a note to you if there was one or another or both that weren't completed. And this time only, I'll still take those from people because a lot of us are, getting acquainted with how Blackboard works. So if you haven't finished those, I'll still take them, but try to turn them in soon, okay? All right. And also, when you check grades, if you see something that doesn't look right or something's missing, email me, because I've got a lot of students. I might make a mistake here and there, so just double check and let me know if you see anything that surprises you. Okay. All right, that's that. I want to remind you about this little box over here on the left. Submit the final versions of your essays here. Pretty much everything we're doing together is kind of focused on this big first project. By big, I mean the 600 word, give or take, few less, few more is okay. 600 word narrative that'll be due not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, okay? So fortunately, I'll be able to see you all before you turn that in, but that's what, our main focus is. And when we do any kind of smaller exercise, it's really for the purpose of assisting you in your thinking about the paper you're going to write, okay? So I'm going to check in with you just a little bit later about whether you've got an idea that you want to explore for this project. By tonight, I remember somebody asked about the writing, reading, speech assistance area. By tonight, I'll put an announcement here in Blackboard with the link to that office so that you could be thinking about scheduling an appointment with them, okay? If you want to go over your draft or talk about your ideas with them. I think you all know by now that after I grade your paper and put some comments on it, if you're feeling you could make your paper better and improve your grade, and you rewrite it and it is better, then the old grade will go away and I'll put the new grade in, okay? So by the 13th, you'll turn your paper in. Within a few days after that, I'll try to have a grade and a brief comment, and then I might follow up with some more in-depth comments. But you could start thinking about whether or not you're satisfied with the grade or if you want to revise it and make it better, okay? Any question about that or any of what I just said?
No.
Okay, thanks. All right. Let me go over to resources for your writing projects. Now, I said each project we do is going to have its own folder. This folder is going to keep growing. Every folder is going to keep growing as I introduce new material. So there's actually quite a bit more stuff in here. And we'll look over some of it today, maybe not all of it, okay? So brand new to you is what's at the top here. And it's the rubric, or kind of the sheet that I'll use when I'm evaluating, marking your essay. And I'm going to open it up, but we may not go into too much detail with it right now. We'll bounce back and forth to it as we do other things today and Thursday. But let me open it up. I don't think you can see this yet, so one sec. Well, now I'm confident you can see this. So each of these boxes covers a different feature that I'll be on the lookout for in your essay. And so they are called, for my language, my way of talking about it, they're your targets, what you're aiming for with this project. Everyone's a little different. So I do want to, kind of say the basics here. Your narrative is going to tell a story that's meaningful and memorable. Memorable to you, for some reason, it stayed with you well enough that you wanted to explore it further. And along the way, in your paper, you're going to do some reflection. And the word reflection means just thinking about the experience and seeing what it adds up to, what it meant to you then as compared to what it may mean to you now. Just thinking about it from different angles, okay? So one of the things is that you want to pick something that counts for something for you, okay? Now, here's the thing. Look at this phrase here, narrative arc. Well, an arc is just kind of the shape of the story, okay? And so this could say the story arc, but what it means is this idea of how it moves from the start to the middle to the end. But we didn't stress this too much the last couple classes. Is there should be something in it that involves a little bit of conflict, okay? It could be a real minor conflict, just some kind of emotional rubbing that you feel inside your spirit or your soul, or it could be some actual conflict, getting pulled over by the police for speeding, or caring for a loved one who is sick. Those could be a lot more major conflicts. But whether it's a minor conflict that might be just some kind of misunderstanding between you and your best friend, to the passing of someone you love, anywhere along there needs to be something you're trying to work through, okay? And so forgive me if I said this the other day, but I do want to emphasize it. You wouldn't write a paper simply to tell about an exciting time you had, like maybe going to Disney World in Orlando, and talking about all the fun things that you did and how exciting it was and how great it was to be with family. It's great to have that experience, but that's not what this assignment's about. There needs to be something that presented a challenge of some sort, okay? Doesn't have to be a huge thing, okay? But it has to be there, and it has to be something you kind of confront some way or another. So like, you wouldn't write a paper about going to Disney World and all the fun times you had there, but you might write a paper about your trip to Disney World in August one year when a hurricane was passing through the southeast of the United States. Then there comes this conflict of, should we turn around and go back? Should we stay and ride it out? There's something that you're pushing against, and you're trying to write the paper to explore the feelings and thoughts and any meanings attached to that. Okay. So let me help you with that today, because that's kind of an important one for you to figure out before you do too much writing. Okay. Now let me stop for a second and see if you have any question about that idea. Or maybe you want to test out an idea you have for me right now.
I have 3 stories. What I don't know which one I can choose.
Yeah, do you mind talking about them?
Roller coaster, no. No,
You don't want to? No roller coaster? No. Yeah, right.
No, I have. I can tell something. The first story is what changed my life is like came to United States, and I know exactly my feelings, dates, everything.
Yeah.
The second story is when I give birth of my child. That was my first. I was very young. And the third story is about how I feel inside when my mom was sick and she got very big problems.
Yes.
And I know exactly the dates, everything, but I'm struggle which one I can choose.
Here's my suggestion. Any one of those 3 where you can easily identify a specific time and place. Okay. So you said for the third one with your mom, you can pinpoint it exactly.
Yeah, when I was driving, I know exactly the time, I know everything.
Because if you remember, that's good, because if you remember all that, that's the sort of thing that is essential with this story. Okay. It can't cover a whole long period, like coming to the United States. That's a powerful experience, but you can't talk about the whole experience. You could talk about like the first day or two and any kind of confusion or challenges. Yeah, that's fine. Or learn going to the store and having a language communication issue, or going to the bank or whatever it might be. But it has to be possible for any one of you in class, right? Not just for you, Ursula, but everyone in class, that you pick something that ideally happened on one day in one place, maybe a couple days, but very focused like that. So any of the 3 ideas, just brainstorm them. Those are good. They're all good. Your birth story, all good. But you want to be thinking about the idea. You got to pick a particular moment or episode, kind of an event within it, and the idea of what might be the conflict. Obviously with your mother, the conflict is finding out that she was quite ill, right?
I think this is the story what I will write. Thank you for
Okay, very good. Anybody else want to test out an idea or 2?
I was thinking about writing a personal narrative about my family, but I didn't really have so how you have there's an obstacle or like a problem, I really couldn't think of one. So I really wanted to change it.
I'm gonna go so far as to say every family has some problem.
Yeah, I know that.
Right. But it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say then out of nowhere I just had another idea. I was gonna think about um the first time I went to or I traveled to India and talk about the problems I had and then the meaningful things that I had there.
Yeah, sure. That's fine. I mean, either direction is good. Just keep it focused, keep it specific. But it sounds like you have something very tangible, very concrete you could talk about with your trip to India. Yeah. Had you been there ever before, or was that your first time?
I've been there twice, I'm pretty sure if I remember, but it was it was middle school, but I want to talk about the first time I visited.
How old were you then?
It was probably like, I would say like seventh grade in middle school, I think. Seventh grade.
Yeah, so that the middle school trip, you went more recently too?
Oh, recently? No, I mean, so it's either I went seventh grade and then I went a year after. So I went,
Oh,
it
okay,
was 7 and 8.
around the
Yeah.
same time, but the when you were the way you remember it when you went in seventh grade. Yeah. And the good thing about
Mm-hmm.
that one is like you could test some of your factual memory with family members. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you can't remember some details, I'm sure there's some people you could double check with about specifics.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I mean, so if you feel good about that, I would just keep thinking about, what was the challenge or obstacle, tension, whatever, however word, right, what's the right word, but there's something that you had to struggle through and figure out a little bit and what it meant to you.
Gotcha.
So that sounds good. I think you're going to do fine with that.
All right.
It's a lot of opportunity for description. There's a lot good there. Okay, let me try one more person in class. Anybody else?
I got one.
Yeah.
I was thinking about writing about my personal narrative about my sophomore year in high school because I was starting. So I was on the track team in my high school, and the beginning of my in January, like when I came back from like winter break, I got like really sick,
Mm,
and I got pneumonia,
yeah.
and it was like really hard also because we were also moving into a new house.
Oh,
So it
geez.
was just like a hassle. Like every
Yeah.
day was just like tough. And I was like
Yeah.
sitting in my bed like the entire day for like 2 weeks. So it was like
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah. And
And
everything's going on around you. People are packing and
yeah,
moving. Yeah.
packing.
Yeah.
So I
And
was thinking
also
about
the thing you love was track and you couldn't go
yeah,
back to that right away.
yeah, I was thinking about writing about that
Yeah, I
for my
think that's
personal narrative.
fine. How did it all work out?
So like when I came back, I just like I was like rusty. Like I was in like because like my freshman year I was like pretty good, but like when I got like sick, I was like kind of bad, I guess. And I was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in bad shape and all that.
Yeah. So it took a while to get back up to your normal capacity.
Yeah,
Um,
it did.
what about like the specific event? Like, you don't want to talk in your paper about something that happens over many days. There should be
Mhm.
some kind of way of concentrating it on a single challenging day, maybe
Yeah.
when you're talking about being stuck in bed, I'm not sure if that's the moment, but
Hmm. Yeah,
you
no, I
that's the
understand what you're
thing you have
saying.
to consider next. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. But all of you, just keep thinking. As soon as you have an idea, you could zip me an email with your thoughts and I can give you some feedback or talk to me on Thursday too. Sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna fly through the rest of this. The categories are language, form, and organization. And at the end, I just add, you try to avoid too many mistakes in grammar and punctuation, things like that. But that just means proofread. And part of the reason you're taking this class is so you can learn these things. So don't sweat it too much. Just do your best. Okay. All right. And so, this will be a way to help me know where your strengths are, where you're exceeding the standards, and where you might need some improvement. So when I grade your paper and give you comments, it'll be with some of these things that I'll reference. All right. So I'm going to leave this for now. And I want to share a paper that was written by a former student. And it's really nice. And the conflict in it is really minor, really small, but it's still there. And I'm going to see if you could figure out what it is. But we're going to look at that paper from different angles because it'll help you think about what you're wanting to experiment with when you write your story. She does a lot of different things that a lot of narrative writers do. that are effective. And so I just want to help you see them from different angles. So I'm going to open this up in a sec. Feel free always to jump in with any questions. So give me a minute to get this ready. Let's see.
Can I just ask one
Yeah.
question? What
Yeah.
are we just turning them into you, these papers? Are
Yeah,
we
so
reading
you're
them?
going
Are
to
we-
turn them into Blackboard but for
Mhm.
this first paper, I'll be the only reader of it, okay? Unless you share it with the writing coach, but you're going to turn it in right inside Blackboard. So that means like attaching the paper as a
Mhm.
file or pasting it into like a box and then submitting it for me. So yeah, I don't anymore even take papers printed out on a printer. I do everything electronically. Does that answer your question?
Definitely.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. All right. Okay, so I'm going to show you this paper. Now, she wrote this in a class where she was able to write a little more than 600 words. So it's not exactly 600 words, but not too much more. Okay. All right. So she calls it Starstruck. And hopefully you could all see it. Since I was a little girl, I was fascinated by descriptions of America's West, the snow-clad mountains, fresh air, wide open spaces, yet the smaller way of living. All made it seem like a different country to me. Last year, my parents said that the four of us, my mom, dad, brother, and me, were going on our long-awaited trip to two national parks, the Badlands and Yellowstone. I was unable to sleep the night before we departed. I was like a kid before Christmas morning. I had visions of the breathtaking scenery that awaited me in only a few hours. I didn't know then that, after anticipating all the natural wonders we planned to see, it would be a spontaneous moment on the side of a lonely road in Wyoming that would become the best part of the vacation. In just a day of driving, we made it to our first scheduled stop, the Badlands. We arrived with only 2 hours to spare before the park closed for the night. We realized that there was not enough time to satisfy our curiosity about Badland adventures, so we chose to breeze past the scenery and bedded down. We would have time to explore after a good night's sleep. Starting early the next day, we trekked among and climbed through the canyons and mountainous terrain. Come mid-afternoon, we made our way out of South Dakota to Wyoming to get to our destination at Yellowstone. As it grew later and our car was consumed in the darkness of our surroundings, I thought to look out the window because it struck me that the stars must look breathtaking out in the vast, non-light polluted sky. My head tilting in all different directions to take in the stars through the glare of the closed car window, I saw trillions of small dots faintly illuminating the night. I could not stop staring. I was entranced, and not even the glare of the window or the movement of the car could break me away. My mom noticed that I had my head pressed to the window for 5 minutes straight as I oohed and ahed about how stunning the sky was. Why don't I just pull over? My mom said with a laugh. Our family got out of the car and stepped onto the side of the street. We remarked on how the depth of the darkness grew even greater as we stepped out of the car. Conversation instantly fell silent as one by one our attention was pulled away by the night sky. Even though the velvet black sky was dripping with innumerable points of light, The first thing we all saw was the thin gray cloud stretching across the sky, the Milky Way. I began to lose myself as I tried to look harder into the vast expanse. I thought to myself, if it's clear enough to see the Milky Way, the possibilities are endless for what else could happen. We saw more constellations than we had collectively seen in our lives, and we even saw a shooting star. My parents pointed out that we needed to find an open hotel. Otherwise, we would be driving deep into the night. I reluctantly had to take my eyes off the stars. My time spent stargazing felt like years, but at the same time, only seconds. We drove on, racking up hours and miles, and even though we passed many scenic wonders, I kept rambling on about the stars. Seeing something as simple as a night sky had an extraordinary impact on me. Even after experiencing canyons, rainbows, salt flats, bears, and the part that I thought would steal nature's show, the white-capped mountains, it was the stars that came to brighten my memories. This unplanned break from our goal-directed family vacation, this losing of ourselves within the night sky, left me with a bittersweet realization. You can miss glorious encounters as you speed toward a destination. Now, she's really very descriptive. She's doing things that would be difficult for a lot of us to do. But I did want you to see this paper because it does so many of the things that you will be able to do too, okay? You might not have her vocabulary yet or be as descriptive as she is. That's okay. You know, each of us has our own style. You write the way that's comfortable for you. But there are some things that she does in this paper that writers do in storytelling like this that you'll be able to do, okay? Now, I want you to kind of notice one thing first, and that really the heart or the core, or the center, I don't know the best word, but right at the center of this is that pulling over to the side of the road and the family looking up at the night sky and the beautiful stars, right? That's the pinpoint center of it. And if there's anything I can urge you to do strongly is that you want to think of this assignment that way. What's at the center of it? What moment, you know, time and place, okay? If you can't find that, you're going to have trouble with this assignment. No matter how much you talk about kind of the rest of your life as it relates to this moment, you have to have that in there, okay? That has to be in there. That's one thing. But now I'm going to ask you kind of a difficult question, and just, you know, jump in. I said every paper is going to have some kind of conflict or struggle or challenge. And this one may not seem to have one at all, really, because it's so quiet and so small. But I wonder if anyone can kind of see where the struggle comes in for this young woman and her family. So any thought on that? The short question is, what's the conflict in this story? And it's so small, you might miss it.
Is it her having to stop looking at the stars and that, and having to look for somewhere else where they have to?
That's so good. Yeah, I would say that's like coming out of the conflict. And so exactly, Nancy, the whole family is focused on getting to their end goal. Yeah, right. You know, she said in the early part of the paper, our long-awaited trip to two national parks, the Badlands and Yellowstone. But it's pretty clear they didn't spend a ton of time in Badlands.
Mm.
You know, I think, you know, they arrived in the Badlands. It was already late. They slept, woke up, and explored for, you know, up through the afternoon, and then they were off again on their way to Yellowstone. So I
Mhm.
think that their end goal was kind of important to them, spending more time in Yellowstone.
Mhm.
And so I think you hit upon it, Nancy, is that the conflict is the family's thinking, go, 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 go. Got to get there, right? Always trying to make it to the beautiful place with the snow-capped mountains and all that, the bears, everything. And so when she realizes that the stars must be beautiful right now while we're driving, it sort of struggle is found there in the thought that, wait, we really know we want to get to our destination, but sometimes you just got to stop.
Mhm.
It's not stopping to smell the roses, it's stopping to look at the stars,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, so I think Nancy hit on it. And so that's a very small conflict, right? It doesn't have to be anything major, but it can be. It's up to you. It depends on the story you're wanting to tell. But anything like that. And so her having to be sort of pulled away from looking at the stars and then get back on the road again, that's kind of where she got her fill of the stars, and that ended up being the most memorable thing about a trip. Okay. Yeah, so just wanted to kind of have you think about what I mean when I say conflict or struggle. Okay. Anybody have a question about that, or maybe see it a little differently?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. It's good too. I'm just going to show you one thing, and then we're going to do something together where you could talk in small groups. But some writers, they spell out their discovery or their realization that came out of their experience, and some kind of leave it for the reader to figure out. But she pretty much spells it out in this piece that I made in blue here. So she said, I didn't know then that after anticipating all the natural wonders we planned to see, it would be a spontaneous moment on the side of a lonely road in Wyoming that would become the best part of the vacation. So she kind of gets right there at, well, we had our big plans, but it was like an unexpected, unanticipated moment that really was the best. Okay, so she sort of spells it out, and you can do that too. She spells it out in her first paragraph, at the end of the first paragraph. That's not required. She actually kind of repeats the idea, right, at the end in different words. This unplanned break from our goal-directed family vacation, this losing of ourselves within the night sky, left me with a bittersweet realization you can miss glorious encounters as you speed toward a destination. It's sort of a variation on what she said up here. Okay. So anyway, I'll help you with that, but you might want somewhere in your paper to kind of let us know in plain words what you realize or discover that you want us to all appreciate and enter into along with you. So you're not just telling the story to kind of help us relive it. You're also helping us understand its meaning for you. Okay, and maybe meaning for everybody. Because sometimes these messages, like hers, like this young woman's, they're universal. We know she's right. Yeah. We know that sometimes you have to just be ready to stop long enough to appreciate what's right around you. Okay. All right. So let's get you guys talking in a small group. So here's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to open up the same story. So one of the things that you want to be ready to do is describe things when it makes sense to describe them. You know, when you introduce us to another character in your story, another person in your story, it might be really good to help us see what they look like, or how they're coming across, what their attitude is. You know, you might want to describe a person, or you might want to describe the situation, the surroundings. Like, you know, just in passing, Ursula talked about being in the car when she got the news about her mom. You know, so like you want to kind of keep putting us in a place so we can kind of visualize it, right? And if she were to explore that, she would talk more about, you know, whether it's heavy traffic or it's light traffic, if she's on the highway, if she's on a surface road in her neighborhood or whatever, right? You just kind of you create that picture in our head. All right. But one of the ways that people help readers understand things is by making comparisons. And she does that with what are called similes, saying what something's like. And so I want to show you these, and then I'm going to have you look at another story, and I want you to try to find a few of them, because a lot of writers do this. So our student here, she talked about her imagination regarding the West in America. And when she thought about all the things that are out there that you don't have in the suburbs, she said it made it seem like a different country to me. Okay. So it's like, is that America? That feels like another country, right? So it seems like a different country. And then when she talked about her excitement, her anticipation about making this wonderful trip out to the Badlands and Yellowstone, she said, I was like a kid before Christmas morning. And, you know, you don't have to celebrate Christmas to know what it's like for kids to get excited about running downstairs and finding gifts under a tree or whatever Christmas morning. A lot of anticipation. And she does that a couple times. You don't want to overdo it. Okay. You don't want to overdo it, but she does it a few places. She talks about, my time spent stargazing felt like years, but it was really only seconds. They weren't out there that long, but it felt like eternity or eternal, right? So you could do this, you know. Do you want to do it every paragraph? No, that would be like phony and artificial. It would feel weird if you were constantly making comparisons, all right? But it's a beautiful tool a writer has to communicate an idea for how it felt or what it looked like, okay? All right, so I want you to bear with me with this, because we're gonna break away from this story and listen to one other story. But then I'm gonna put you right into groups, and I want you to be looking for similes, okay? Because I want to show you that this is an option, and it's a good option when you're developing your story. You might not even put these things in until later after you've written a draft, but it's good to keep it in your head, okay? So So here I'm going to ask you to just kind of shift gears with me for 5 minutes, and then I'll have you try this out. You're going to be looking for similes. So let me stop share here.
So we're pretty much looking for like figurative language, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And the reason I didn't use that phrase is because there's metaphors too, which are like similes. It's just that they leave out the it's like something, or it's as if something, you know. So like if someone were to say that a friend's smile is like the shining sun, that's a simile. But if someone were to say her smile is a shining sun, that's a metaphor. It's almost making it say it just is that. It's that. It's an identification with that.
All right.
So
Got it.
that's exactly right, though. I mean, you're totally on it there. Figurative language is like different ways to kind of broaden out someone's understanding beyond the literal. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, you're right on it. Okay. All right. So here's what I want to ask you to do with me is just listen to another story. At the end of class last Thursday, all I did is I read you this essay that was by, you know, a more polished professional writer off the road. We really didn't do anything with it. And I think I'm glad you heard it, but I don't think we're going to dwell anymore on that. There's a point at which too much analysis is just too much. So I do want to listen to this one, and it's very understandable. And so I'm going to project it. It's called Home and Away. And yeah, so this story was also in the New York Times, just like that story I read to you on Thursday about the guy with the truck. So this is written by a woman named Yannick Murphy, okay? And she writes about being a mom and the chance to have a little getaway with her husband apart from the kids. And, you know, moms and dads need that sometimes. And so, but things don't go quite as she hoped. All right. So if you'll just listen, and you can read along if you want. So Home and Away. The idea of going along with my husband to the track was like a slice of heaven to me. He's a horse vet, so he's a veterinarian. And the racing season in Del Mar, California was in full swing. My mother was visiting and could take care of our 3 small children. I wouldn't have to do the scolding or the soothing or the encouraging or the mediating. I wouldn't even have to speak at all if I didn't want to. We got up early. The dark morning air was moist and salty. Everything sounded muffled, wrapped in ocean breeze. Even the closing of the truck door was almost quiet. My husband drove us there quickly. We didn't bother to look over toward the shore on our ride. There was no way we would be able to see the surf in the morning dark or any hint of a wave rolling in the black Pacific. Let me pause for a second and see what's in the chat. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Lara. Rolling in the black Pacific. When we went through the gate on the back side of the track, my husband waved to the guard in his booth. On the little road there that runs between barns, horses and riders appeared and disappeared like ghosts in the fog. A goat stood his ground in front of the truck until we drove around him. Our first stop was Patty's barn, to use an endoscope on a horse. Patty was a trainer, and up and down his shed row there were riders walking by carrying saddles and hot walkers scurrying by with shanks to lead horses to the wash racks. We heard grooms calling out, hot horse, and we heard the snap of cross ties as horses were being led out of their stalls. My husband inserted the long tube of the endoscope into the nose of Patty's horse and looked through the eyepiece at the horse's throat for the common signs of blood that appear sometimes after a horse has just worked. It was a routine procedure. "He's clean," my husband said. Patty nodded and said, "Thanks, Doc." And then he looked at me, ready to fire a joke my way, but he never had a chance to begin. My husband's cell phone rang. A horse was down on the track. The filly was a bay with only the slightest bit of white on her head. A dusting is what it was, as if it had been sprinkled on her from a salt shaker. But that's only what I noticed later. What I noticed first was her leg. She had broken it at the ankle. The cannon bone showed through white and round, like a small skull rimmed with pink blood. She was standing on her 3 good legs in the ambulance. Her eyes were bright. She didn't look to me as if she needed to be killed. The rubber floor of the ambulance she stood on was clean except for some clods of dirt that had fallen from her hooves. But there was no blood that I could see. My hopes rose. But then Ben, the trainer, came. He saw his horse and stepped away. He hung back, standing by my husband's truck. There were tears in his eyes. My husband came with the shot, not bothering to swab the filly's neck with alcohol. Meanwhile, the filly looked at me. I was sure she was asking me to help her. "I'm sorry," I told her in my head. "I can't help you." The filly's last look at the world should have been at blue sky, not me. She'd never even seen me before, but it was too late. The filly slid down the inside wall of the ambulance with her head on the floor between her 2 front legs, as if she were bowing. The saddle was wedged beneath her. My husband undid the girth and began to pull it off. Like a magician doing the tablecloth trick, he pulled it away from her. There was a dark patch of sweat on the filly's coat in the exact shape of the saddle. We drove home the way we had come in the pre-dawn, but now we could see the surf. The waves were rolling, peeling off in even lines. The sky was clear. The clouds had disappeared and left a perfect blue. My husband told me that the structure of the horse's ankle was destroyed and that she couldn't be saved. Riders say that when the bone snaps like this, it sounds like a rifle shot. At home, our children came running out to see us. "What took you so long?" they said to me. "You've been gone for days." I didn't correct them. They were looking into my eyes. And I knew my eyes were telling them how much I loved them and had missed them. And wasn't that really the look of someone who had been gone for days? When they were babies, I was in the habit of not speaking aloud to them. I just talked to them in my head and looked into their eyes. And that's what I did now. Okay. Now, before I put you guys in groups where you're looking for these comparisons, and I'm calling similes, like one thing is like another, I want to ask you, I think this time, it might be a little bit more challenging to figure out what's the message. I'm not talking about the conflict. The conflict's pretty clear, right? The writer, the mom, is out with her husband, and she wants this kind of chance to be just out for the day with her husband, not having to be responsible for the kids. But things go bad, right? So the conflict is clear. The horse gets hurt and she's there to witness it. And it's very wrenching. It's very tragic, right? So we know what the conflict is with this one. What's maybe a little harder is to say, what's the realization or the discovery in this one? What is kind of the message of this story as you see it? Because I don't think she spells it out quite so plainly as some of the other essays we've read. What do you guess or think about that?
I want to say in the first paragraph, last sentence was her not having to speak and knowing how to relate to her kids
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah, so the meaning is for you somewhere there in this idea of feeling connected to her kids, even without having always to talk to them? Or am I missing it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think.
Yeah,
more or
and I
less.
want others to kind of build on what Nancy said there. Like, I want to hear more from someone else about this, because this one's a little bit more elusive, meaning it's hard to get a handle on. But I think it's important in this story, this idea of talking and silence, right? And I want to hear from somebody else too. What do you think this essay, this narrative is exploring and pointing towards?
For me, I think that the sentence, what we're talking about now, is like she has choice, don't talk with the children because she don't want to. She talk probably at home a lot with
Right.
kids. And the end of the story is like she started to talk with kids in her mind because she couldn't talk with them, I think, like explain because she's supposed to be happy and she's not.
Yeah. The kids are so enthusiastic
Yes, and
about seeing her. They feel like she's been gone for a real long time. It's only been a day, right? Morning till
Yes.
night. But yeah, so she's quiet with them, but she's looking into their eyes, right? And she did that when she was a young parent with her kids too, right? She would look into their eyes. Somebody else, where else is eye contact important in this story?
When the horse is dying.
Yeah, right. When the husband puts the lethal shot into the horse is looking at her and she's looking at the horse, and it's like they're having a connection. And she doesn't want to be the last person this horse sees. She wants the horse to experience the open nature, but it's not meant to be. Yeah. So, okay. I think that's fine, right? We know that it's kind of exploring this idea of, we don't always feel like talking. Sometimes we're forced into talking, but we're reminded of that connection we could still have with people that happens just in their communion, eye to eye, right? And maybe some of you feel this too. So many of us are masked out in the world, and when we're talking to some people, you have to rely a lot on your eyes, and the eyes manage sometimes to catch a whole bunch of meaning, even though you can't see the rest of someone's expression. All right, so I'm going to actually put you guys into groups. I don't want to forget what we're looking for here. So now I'm saying that one of the things that writers do is, look for figurative language, as it was put, but specifically similes. And this writer likes to use them a lot. So here's my question to you. Tell me this in the chat. I'm going to go out for just 1 second, and then I'll put you in groups. This story, you kind of need it in front of you. And so it's in Blackboard, and I want you to be able to find it. It's kind of buried in the middle here. So let me show you where it is. Can you get into this? Could you go to resources for your writing projects here on the left side, open up the personal narrative folder right now, and then you have to scroll down until you see that title, Home and Away, and then open up that story, okay? So could you do that right now? Because I'm gonna put you in groups after I feel most all of you have got it open. But when you get it open, just say yes in chat or got it.
Mm,
Is it the home and away one?
Yep.
Uh,
I got it.
Okay. Gonna wait a little bit longer.
I got it.
Okay. Couple more. So you're opening up the one that's in resources for your writing projects, and it's home and away. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, there are 8 of us still here today. So I'm going to put you into groups of 3, but one group is just going to have 2 in it. And so what you're going to want to do is be able to open it up, look at it together, and then talk about as many similes as you can find that she uses. And then we'll come back in just a few minutes. So let me break you into groups, breakout rooms. I'm going to make it into 3 rooms. And let's see. Okay. So it looks like it's going to be one group is Fabian, Nancy, and Ursula. Another group is Efren, Laura, and Omar. And then Kaylee and Rahul are together. Okay. All right. So join up with them.
Okay. I'm back.
Okay. All right. So we don't have to find these in order in the story, just wherever you see one. I'm gonna actually just call out to a few different people, and if you just don't have anything to point to, just say pass. Omar, was there any in your group that you found? Omar?
No.
Yeah, so my group, I think it was I don't know the names. I forgot their names already.
Yeah,
I'm
they'll
sorry.
jump in. They'll know. So, but you give us one, and then your teammates could jump in.
Well, from what they were saying, one of the similes was that the husband to the track was like a slice of heaven to me.
Oh yeah,
And
right from the start, right? Yeah,
yeah,
right
so
there,
they
right at
found
the
that right
beginning.
away. So I thought that was pretty.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, so right in the first sentence, she uses that simile. What did it feel like in her mind to think of taking this getaway with her husband? Like heaven, slice of heaven, just a piece of heaven. Yeah, okay. How about those who were with Omar? Any others?
Like any other similes?
Yes, exactly, Laura.
I have one in paragraph 3.
Okay, what you see?
In the second sentence, it says, horses and riders appeared and disappeared like ghosts in the fog.
Yeah, that's really a nifty one, isn't it? I mean, it makes sense if you've ever been out driving really early in the morning, and you know, it might be a mailbox or something like that, but for a second it just kind of appears and then disappears, or you know, so that ghost in the fog, I think, is a pretty evocative simile. So good. Okay, anybody else?
I'm sorry, can you pull up the side-by-side screen?
Oh, you're not seeing the story, or?
No, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no. Let me just, now you just mean this,
Just
right?
exactly.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's the thing about Zoom. When it comes to like Word documents and things like that, it doesn't show very well. So just really quickly. So Omar said, here's that first one, slice of heaven, the idea of
Mhm.
going slice of heaven. And then Laura just brought us to this one here, horses and riders appeared and disappeared like ghosts in the fog. Yeah, okay, another one.
Can you scroll down?
Yep.
Because we found the last one. um,
All the way to the bottom.
um, Ursula, which one did we say?
I think we found like the ghost in the fog. That was not. We found out too.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got.
you saw that one too. Okay.
Yeah.
And then go further down. Well, that was like.
It's the one with the cannon bone showed through white and round like a small skull rimmed with pink blood.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
exactly that phrase, like a small
Thank you,
skull.
Fabian.
And just like the ghosts in the fog, you know, it's interesting. Sometimes writers are so skillful that the things that they choose as details, they have a little extra feeling behind them. So ghosts and skulls, you know, all of that kind of adds to the sort of gloomy, macabre kind of feeling of this tragic day with the horse breaking its bone. Yeah. So like a small skull, you can picture it in your head so easily, right? Okay, I know there's more. What else you got? Anybody else?
Is it just like part of that group or just anyone in general?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's open it up
Oh.
to anyone in general now.
I did find one with Kaylee, but I'm not sure if it was a simile. I think it was right above the one that you just highlighted. Or not highlighted, but yeah, right there. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
says that the first sentence was like the filly was a bay with the only slightest bit of white on her head. A dusting is that, or is what it was, as if it's been sprinkled on her from a salt shaker.
Yeah, that also is a simile because sometimes they use like, sometimes they use as if.
Mhm.
So, yep, you got it. Right. So we could picture that very easily too, you know. Just looks like these little dots of white. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Anybody in class? Any others? I don't remember. Oh, yeah, there's one more very shocking one.
It sounds like a rifle shot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, you know, people that know what this sounds like when it happens to a horse, that snap, she says, she was told, sounds like the shot of a rifle. And that's a very violent image too, isn't it? It's very strong. And so sometimes just thinking a little bit about how to exactly describe something using this kind of language has a lot of power in it. So there's one more that I happen to be focused on right now on this page that we didn't mention. I bet somebody saw it. One more.
Is it the sky was clear, the clouds had disappeared and left the perfect blue?
Up here.
Like the magician.
Yeah, we'll get to the magician, but I want to hear from you, Fabian. What did you see in this one?
1 second, I'm gonna look at it because I don't know why my stuff is like glitching and it's like
Oh.
everything's starting to get fuzzy.
Oh
So-
no. Oh, okay.
But yeah, I said that one. There was a dark patch of sweat on the Philly's coat in the exact shade of the sadly is I don't think I said it right, but
So
it's
the
last
saddle.
sentence.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's the last sentence.
Okay, so I would um I would argue that this is actually straight description. Like the phrase dark patch of sweat. Are you referring to that phrase?
Yeah.
I think that's actually describing it not for what it was like, but for what it was.
So
Okay.
then it would be like the magician one then? The right one would
Yeah,
be like-
right. That's right. As was just mentioned, the magician one is it. And maybe, you know, when I was a kid, this was a popular trick that would be on TV, you know, where there'd be a variety show and a magician would come out and they'd have a table with plates and glasses and bowls and things like that, like 4 settings around a square table. And the magician would come up and grab the edge of the tablecloth and give it a real quick yank. And magically, all the glasses and plates and bowls and things like that would stay put. They wouldn't crash or break, you know, so it was usually made of crystal or something like that. And so what the husband did with the saddle was reminiscent of that. It reminded her of a magician kind of grabbing the edge of a tablecloth and giving it a quick tug. And we all know what that's like, right? Sometimes you just have to give something a quick pull and it frees it up from whatever is weighing it down. So what I want to mention about this writer, she just happens to, in this essay, really enjoy using similes. You might not feel the need to use any similes at all in your story, but it's an option, right? It's a choice that's available to you, okay? So that's good. I'm going to leave this alone unless there was one more that you're burning to tell me about that we didn't get to. We hit a lot, didn't we?
Mhm.
So she uses a lot. That's just part of her style. And she uses them well, I think.
Mm.
All right, we're going to do one more activity. We won't go all the way up to 10 of because, like I've said before, when we meet in person, you know, next Tuesday, you know, we'll have class like this on Thursday, but next Tuesday we're in person again for, well, again, meaning finally. And, you know, then we'll have a break between class periods, but we haven't, that wouldn't be convenient for this. So we'll finish up a little bit early, but we're going to try one more thing I'm going to have you try a little experiment of description in the chat, and you just want to kind of try things. But we're going to listen to one last story, and you can read along. And again, it's very short and quite easy to understand. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop share here, and we're going to do this little thing. So right now, there's nothing on the screen. All right, so I'm at a website now, and it's up here. It says, "This I believe," and this was something very popular on the radio for a few years, where people would tell very brief stories that illustrated some belief that they had. And sometimes I've used it as an assignment in my writing classes. But this lady here on the screen, she's just, a normal person like you or me, who has this belief that it's important that we kind of acknowledge other people and say their name and let them know we see them. And so the title, to recognize our humanity, she's talking about like really affirming or saying to someone just with a hello and their name that you're important enough for me to call you by your name. I see you. So we're going to listen to this. I don't think it's quite queued up where I want it to be. So let's see if I can get it to start at the beginning. I don't know. But anyway, I'll get it set up. But you could read along, and then this will be our last activity today, and we'll take at most, 10, 12 minutes with it. And then I'll stick around to talk to anybody. All right, so let's see where this comes in.
Driving home from work after my hour-long commute every day on a long, winding country road, I passed a house where an elderly man sat on his front porch, rocking slowly in an old glider. I had been introduced to him only once when I first moved into my home. For these past 15 years, I have lowered my window, given my horn a tap, waved and shouted, "Hi, Charlie." I felt compelled to acknowledge him in this way because I could not imagine going through a day without hearing someone say my name. I felt he needed to hear his name spoken at least once, if only by me, a relative stranger. I used to wave at his wife, too, when she was out walking their toy poodle. She was a sweet, small woman in a long wool coat and kerchief, no matter what the season or weather. I called her my dried apple doll grandma. I didn't know who she was, but I would slow down and say, "Hi, Grandma," and she would smile and wave back. But then came the day that she was not out, and Charlie was walking the dog. I knew that he was now alone, and the imperative to acknowledge him grew stronger. My window was rolled down before I came around the corner, and even if he was not on the porch, I would tap the horn and call out to him, hoping that in his aloneness he'd hear me. As long as there was a light in the house and the blue glow from the TV screen shining out of the window, I felt that he was all right. The inevitable day came. Charlie's pickup truck was for sale out on the front lawn. A few days later, a realtor sign was posted, and I knew that Charlie was gone. I still honk and wave and yell, "Hi, Charlie," as I pass, albeit without as much gusto as I had in the past. The house is dark now. It's my belief that all of us need to be acknowledged at least once a day, that we need to hear our names spoken aloud by another person to cement our place on this planet, to know that someone sees us and recognizes our humanity, the truth of our being. I feel that it's incumbent upon all of us to acknowledge each other each day in this way, to speak to that truth. This I believe. Drive.
Whoop. So we're not going to do much with this except one thing. This story is a little different from how you're going to write your story because she's talking about different moments. One moment when she would honk and say hi to Charlie, one moment that when she would honk and say hi to Charlie when he knew that one moment when she would honk and say hello to his wife, who she called grandma, and then continuing to honk to Charlie. And then even after Charlie must have passed on, continuing to kind of signal that there was life in that home, right? Lots of little episodes, a little different from what you're having to do, but she's doing something that all of us with this assignment need to do. And she's trying to do some visual description. Okay. And now the one that I want to point out to you before I kind of get you doing a little bit of experimenting with your own description, and we'll only do one exercise like this today, is this funny one. It is kind of funny. She described Charlie's wife, older lady, as her dried apple doll grandma. And to be honest with you, I never heard of that expression before, dried apple doll. Does somebody know what kind of handcraft that is? I'll show you an example, but has anybody heard of that?
No, it's my first time hearing that.
How about anybody else? Let me show you an example. Anybody? No? Nancy, were you going to say
For me
something?
too.
New for, yeah. So it was new for me too. So let me just kind of go out of this for one moment because it's like a metaphor, right? It's not a simile because she didn't say she was like this or it was as if she was like this. She said she was my dried apple doll. So hang on. And I think you'll find this kind of interesting, as I did. Here we go. So when I looked it up, I found out it's a craft. And it's a craft where you take an apple and you just let it dry out and dry out and dry out until you can kind of peel away the skin and start carving it. And it creates the impression of like older wrinkled skin. And so with like a little knife for whittling, this person took the apple and made this, face here of an older lady. And in so many ways, she fits the description of the woman wearing the kerchief, and here it's a shawl, right? But so when this writer is trying to help the reader or the listener get a picture in her head, if you knew what this was, immediately you'd have an idea of how she looked, right? And so, she was being creative there. All right, so now you know, right? Okay, so here we go. This is what we're gonna do. Our last thing, we'll take maybe 10 minutes with it. All right, 1 second, I'll get this all queued up. I don't have this in Blackboard for our class. This is not an assignment you have to turn in, just a little bit of practice. On Thursday, I am going to give you a paragraph I want to have you work on for next Tuesday. Okay, I'll tell you about that on Thursday. Okay, one more moment. Here we go. Okay, so can everybody see that I have a Word document up here? I'm going to make it so it's in screen, all in the screen. Whoop. Yeah, so okay, can everybody see that? There's like the story on the left side and then some things on the right side in the margin. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so we're only going to practice the one that I'm hovering the cursor over here on the right-hand side. And the reason I want to practice it is because, you know, when you read somebody else's descriptions, you might think, man, I don't write like that. I don't even know how to write like that. But it's something you can learn, okay? And so we're going to experiment with it a little bit. But in this paragraph right here, where the writer, Peg Fagan, describes the lady, she says about the old lady, she was a sweet, small woman in a long wool coat and kerchief, no matter what the season or weather. And then she talks about her as the dried apple doll grandma. But I only want to focus on the part in blue right here, bright blue. Okay. Off to the right here. Can you see off to the right here? I'm just highlighting it. I wrote that sentence again. She was a sweet, small woman in a long wool coat and kerchief, no matter what the season or weather. And I'm going to call that like a model sentence that I'm going to ask you to try to imitate with somebody else in mind. You're not trying to describe this lady. Think of someone else, completely different. Could be totally made up, or it could be someone in your life that you can visualize. And that's what I did here. I made up this guy named Dale. Okay. I don't know. Well, actually, now I do know one Dale, but it's not this guy. I had this guy in my head that I called Dale, and this is how I described him. Dale was a strong, burly man in a work vest that had a sturdy loop for carrying a hammer and plastic-lined pockets for holding nails. Do you see how my made-up sentence, what I'm calling the imitation, is similar to the model here, where she's called sweet, small woman. I picked Dale and called him a strong, burly man. So I'm using the same form or structure, but I'm creating my own details for the description of who I have in my head. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to write a sentence, not about this lady, not about Dale, but somebody else in your head. Okay. And so you might start it with like he was, or she was, or Clarissa was, you know, just like give a name or use a pronoun like he or she, and then give a little bit of description, you know, use some adjectives, and then elaborate a little bit. Help us see this person like you're creating a snapshot that we can use to visualize them. Does that make sense? If it does, I'm going to ask you to go into the chat when you're ready. I'm going to set the timer for just maybe like 5 minutes. And don't worry if you can't even write a very complete sentence. Just take a stab at this. Create your own imitation of this model and put it in the chat. And then we'll see what you come up with, and we'll talk about ways to maybe add more or you know, make any changes that make sense. Okay, so I'm going to do this 5-minute thing, and you have at it. Okay, write to me in the chat if you're not quite clear what I'm asking you to do, but I just wanted to try to imitate that model sentence there. Back with you again in 5 minutes.
Mine seems a little weird. It's because I'm trying to type and everything's like very weird right now. It's like words are coming together and everything. So if it kind of is like doesn't make as much sense, I apologize.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Yeah, I'll let you know if it. Thanks, Ursula. We'll look at that one. Looks good. Yeah, so try that out, Fabian, and see how it shows up. You might be able to just read it out loud in a minute. We're going to take another maybe minute and a half. Looks like it worked out, Fabian. It looks like it came in clear.
Thank you, because like I couldn't even see what I was typing.
Yeah, that's a weird feeling, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like having a blindfold on.
Definitely.
Okay, I think we're going to go ahead because there's plenty here, and thank you for taking a chance with this. So, Ursula, I'm going to read yours unless you tell me no. I think it's fine.
If it's fine with you, it's fine with me too.
Okay, so you say, my friend looks like a tall, thin flower with red petals on top. That creates a nice, crisp image. So very nice. Good. Rahul, okay if I read yours?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. He was a very brave, tall man that stood 6'4" with a tank top and shorts. No matter how cold it was, he still went to the gym. Nice, nice. And that one, you were definitely trying, pretty carefully to follow the model, like starting with he, and then had a couple adjectives, brave and tall. Yeah, so that one is especially close to the model, which is quite nice too. Okay, so Fabian, I'm going to read it as I see it here. How do I say that name? D'Angelo?
D'Angelo.
Oh, D'Angelo. Yeah, I gotcha. D'Angelo was a very interesting and mysterious person with a funny personality. He didn't question your mistakes and he didn't hound you for being different. I kind of want to know D'Angelo now, so that's a good accomplishment. Nice. Okay. And then Nancy, okay if I read yours?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is Asia, right?
Yes.
Asia was a courageous and empathetic woman, like a lion in the wild, fighting against the distraught bear, etc. Like you could say more, right? Right. The ECT was that like,
Yes, of
say,
course.
yeah, like you could keep going, but you've got a lot of good details there. So I want you to just understand, you can do this and you should try to do it, whether you're talking about a person or talking about the setting in which you are telling your story. Sometimes students say they don't want to get too detailed, but this is definitely the kind of assignment where you have to, you must, because it brings the story to life. Okay, I said we'd finish a little early. We're going to stop now. It's not that early. But Efren, you'll stick around for a minute, hopefully. And anybody else who wants to chat with me, hang around.